If you're hearing this spooky podcast on an Android device, well, I hope that you're safe and snug and not in some foggy woods or an ancient castle or the abandoned weird house in your neighborhood. But if you are or aren't, you should still heed this advice, and that's to check out the Podcast Republic app on the Google Play Store. Thousands of good reviews to tell you how wonderful the app is for listening to podcasts, so you don't have to take my word for it. Many people have said how wonderful the Podcast Republic app is, so you should listen to them and check it out. It's the Podcast Republic app, and it's on the Google Play Store. Andrew, I've got a problem.
Yes?
I've been stricken with lycanthropy, and I now have just an egregious amount of body hair.
Too much body hair.
Too much body hair.
Well,
I look like a werewolf. I have lycanthropy.
I was going to say, look like Teen Wolf? You look like...
I look like a wolf. I look like a less cool teen wolf, if you can believe that.
That's a hard thing to imagine. Well, lucky for you, support for Dissecting the 80s is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code MACHO, MACHO, at manscaped.com.
That sounds good, but what if, for example, I wanted to keep some but not all of this lycanthropy-based body hair?
Well, you're in luck because the Lawnmower 4.0 allows you to customize your trim with additional guard lengths in 1 through 4, so you can get a customized length just for you.
What if my other problem is that my wolf cave is dark, I got the whole moon problem, I got light issues.
Well, the trimmer also has a very bright LED light. It is 4000K LED spotlight, which gives you a precision shave and lets you see everything you're shaving and no nicks, scrapes, cuts, or bleeding.
And what if I don't have that much money?
Well, you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code MACHO at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code MACHO, MACHO. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Your balls will thank you.
Oh. Welcome to Dissecting the 80s. I am Trip Lano, one half of the Mega Podcasting Powers, and with me, as always, is a man who, doesn't have lycanthropy because, like me, is not a very hairy person, so it would be very obvious immediately. The Macho Mandrew.
Andrew Lano. The number of times I've been asked, how often I shave my chest, I'm like, I don't. I don't do it. This is just what happens.
Yeah, I feel very bad I have some friends who struggle with the shoulder tufts, or a particularly hairy back, and I just it's not genetically not a problem.
Honestly, I would rather that though. I am like a little seal.
We are kicking off a really exciting theme month here on Dissecting the 80s. 2 classics in the field of horror, both celebrating their 40th anniversaries here in 2021. The first one we've got first time watch for me, first time watch for you?
Yeah, so I've seen one scene from 100 Scariest Movie Moments.
Okay, yeah, ditto.
Other than that, this is my first time watching.
Okay, so we have, to start off our werewolf month, 1981's The Howling, directed by our favorite, one of our favorites, Joe Dante. And we watched that, and you know what that means.
We gotta go back. We gotta go dissect the 80s. It's your werewolf cult. Something about your werewolf cult.
When the mega powers explode.
It's time, right? Do not make the move.
Get away from him! Dad, where the hell is Corkscrew?
Wolfman's got narc!
Rest in peace.
So one of the things that's an issue with doing this podcast is we've said for a long time that we will happily watch a sequel with no, background information. We won't go watch a whole series. So we've often grabbed, part 4s for February. For this series, we watched part 4 and part 5 for various reasons. I think we watched part 5 to kick off season 5.
That sounds right.
I think that's what it was. And, part 4 was in February, back when that was still going on. And the bummer of it is The Howling Part 4 is almost beat for beat a way worse remake of this movie. And so despite the fact that I was watching it for the first time, it felt like a movie that it was as if instead of eating like a really nice bowl of nice, good ice cream, I was eating a bowl of like frozen yogurt of a flavor I didn't super care for. And because it was like, oh, I know what's going to happen. And then like characters kept popping up and I'd be like, oh, that's this archetype. Oh, that's this archetype, which was kind of a huge bummer. It was one of the few times that I've been like, oh man, the way we do the podcast made this worse.
Especially because it's been like, 2 years at least since we did Howling 4, I'm going to say.
It honestly might be longer than that. Yeah.
I didn't super remember that.
We did them within 6 months of each other. So Howling 5 was 3 years ago, and this was either 6 months before that or 6 months after that. So it was at least 2.5 years ago, if not 3.5, actually.
Yeah. So I didn't super remember that movie until I started watching,
right,
and I was like, yeah, I was like, I feel like this is familiar. This is what happens in the fourth one.
It's like I'm having deja vu.
Just a bold move.
That movie was like, oh, that movie you liked, we're just going to make it again. So if you haven't seen The Howling, don't watch Howling Part 4 first, I would say, is my recommendation.
Definitely watch this first.
That's truly one of the most egregious of those sequels where it's like we're just making the first movie again with a completely new set of characters. That's like a modern thing. I didn't know they were doing that back then.
Yeah, it's I feel like the modern thing is the weird sequels that like aren't sequels too.
Yeah, but like they do that thing now where it's like it's Kindergarten Cop 2 and it's Dolph Lundgren this time, and you watch the trailer and it's just all these scenes from the first movie done by Dolph Lundgren, and it's like, what? Who is this for? What is the point of this?
Yeah, I don't need to see 61-year-old Dolph Lundgren make out with a 30-year-old woman who probably doesn't know who he is.
Right. Also, who I watched Kindergarten Cop like a bunch of times. Like of the people who have a fondness for Kindergarten Cop, I am high on the list. Like that movie was a movie I have fond memories of watching. I have zero interest in watching it.
Yeah, no.
And I have less than zero interest in watching the remade version. What are we doing? Anyway, so let's kick off The Howling because I'm excited to talk about this movie. I love that we start with, and this was in the trailer that I watched as well. It's a super tight close. It's not really a close up, I guess. Well, it becomes a close up, but it's screen's fully black, and we hear these slashing sounds, and these red streaks start coming across, and it's clearly letters being formed, and they do like whoosh, 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 and then the camera zooms back and it just says The Howling, and I was like, well, that's not enough scratches. It's a great font. But there's like 3 slash noises, and I'm like, this is a lot of slashes. The H alone is 3 slashes.
2 hands.
I guess, but I wanted more slash sounds. I felt it was an incorrect number of slash sounds.
It kind of reminded me of, I don't know if this is in the actual movie, but I know it's in the trailer for Alien, the way they spell out the word alien with like part of a letter at a time.
Lines. Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. Not that I agree. Definitely in the trailer for Alien, I'm not sure that it's in the movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
I will say that I like this movie a lot, but there are some things that I think could have used fine tuning, not to besmirch the great Joe Dante. Because like, this opening, there's the slashing and it shows The Howling, and then it's like this weird close-up of a TV screen with like words cut in with some static. It reminds me of like the ending of the end credits of WandaVision, and I was just like, it felt more like a They Live or a very sci-fi kind of thing, like Open the Pod Bay Doors Hal sort of vibe than this werewolf movie.
Honestly, the whole like weird cult they go visit is sort of like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers sort of thing almost, right? Like it sort of feels like it being werewolves. You could do this movie and it's not werewolves and it would be like pretty.
I wish this movie wasn't called The Howling.
Oh, you think it gives away too much?
Yeah, because you don't really like knowing it's called The Howling colors everything that you're watching. And if you don't know it's called The Howling, then like the guy being weird, like the guy in silhouette in the porno theater you don't think werewolf. You just think like a big guy.
Right.
And then like when the werewolf stuff,
Big 80s.
yeah, when the werewolf stuff does happen, that would be a cooler twist. But like,
Yeah. I totally agree. But it is nice to see Queen D,
80s mom extraordinaire.
Yes. Yes, the mom in E.T., which stay tuned, as we've said. We'll get there.
And
We'll get
Cujo.
there. And Cujo. Yeah, I actually put a pin in the Cujo thing. We're gonna circle back to Cujo in like an hour later into this discussion.
And she was the mom in
we'll get there.
in Critters.
Yeah, she is the mom.
She's the 80s mom.
Yeah. Which is really funny because Critters, I feel like I remember that being 84. Cujo is 83. And E.T. is for sure 1982. And so it's like this movie comes out in 1981 and they're like, great job in the picture. Now you're too old to be the lead. You can be the mom in all the rest of the movie.
I always felt like her role in Cujo was sort of like a younger mom.
Yeah,
like it
she's
didn't
definitely
feel
a young
like
mom in Cujo.
PTA
Yes.
mom.
Yeah. And we're also skewed. This is one of those things, like we've talked about this before, just as a general thing of like society evolves, of course. And so, a 24-year-old woman, it wouldn't be that crazy for her to have three. I don't know how old Dee Wallace was in 1982. I'm just saying, like, people had kids much, much earlier back then. And people's, the evolution of those things is different. So it's, it's totally fine. But it's more that like once you've become mom on screen, you don't get anything cool to do.
Well, it's like when they cast her. I mean, at least Cujo is a cool mom role. But like when they cast Aubrey Plaza to play the mom in the Child's Play remake, I was like, she's a mom age now? I was like, she was fucking April. Like, it feels like 5 years ago she was April.
Right. Yeah, I think the thing that's tricky about April, though, is that show ran for so long. This was seven seasons for Parks. Yeah, and so she starts as like a 22-year-old, and so by the end of Parks, her character is 30, but the character doesn't ever really evolve to be an adult. Like her and Andy sort of become adults, whatever. That's sort of their arc, but they're still very playful kid-like people, and so it's very easy for you to see that. Although they do have a kid at the end of that, don't they?
I've actually never finished the final season because I'm not ready to say like it's like I've done this with books before where like I'll get 3/4 of the way through and I'm like I don't want this to end.
I have to tell you, it is the way that they handle the finale. Like,
I'm sure it's beautiful,
but it's not just that it's beautiful. It's that they like conclude the story and then they do a time jump to like way in the future.
Yeah,
and you see. Like,
I heard that.
You see their lives. Yeah, it's a thing that I've seen a bunch of people do since, and I'm sure they're not the first ones to do it. Although maybe they are. Really beautiful. Like it's genuinely very beautiful. I highly recommend you finish.
I will. It's just
You
that
will
for
not
me, I'm
feel
like,
like,
I always know that there's more. Like there's shows like I've watched where like, oh, there's no more of that show. Like I'm just gonna be rewatching old episodes. I know I have more fresh Parks and Rec that I've never seen, and that makes me excited.
Yeah. Well, they also did the pandemic episodes. You could like watch that somewhere in between.
Oh, that's true.
So it's like you could watch up until the time jump, stop, do the pandemic episode, and then do the jump.
Good point.
So you get an extra episode. Anyway, this is not a Parks and Rec podcast, but yeah, it is interesting. It's like I'm gonna look up how old Dee Wallace was when this movie came out, but in Cujo, she's definitely a young mom. You're right, and she actually she carries Cujo.
I'm gonna guess she's 29 in this movie.
That feels right to me. Born in 48, so in 81 she would be 33.
Hang on, so she was born in 48. You said?
Yeah.
So what's 40 minus 7?
Plus 3. No, it's plus 30 is 7. We don't need to do math on the podcast. She's 33. I'm sure of this.
Plus 40 minus
positive.
7.
It's 33. Yeah. Anyway, it's 33 years old. So like old for a leading role for an actress in 81, I would say.
For sure.
But she's very good in this movie. So Scuzzy New York, she is this part I do feel
I needed a little explanation.
A little bit of beef. Yeah, it's like I'm on board and I like that you're kind of throwing me in the middle, but I do need just like another 2 sentences from characters. I'm like, I really like I pieced it together, but I was very much like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I got there, but it would have been nice to have a full recipe. Because like honestly, it would have been nice also because the only time we're told she is a reporter, but the only time we ever see her on camera is after she's been like traumatized, and so she's like.
Right.
freezing up and not being a good on-camera reporter because she was traumatized. And like, it would have been nice to have a moment of her being the like, I'm Cecily Tyson or whatever our local that I can't remember. Is it Cecily Tyson or is that
Was it My brain wants to say that it was Tynan.
Cecily Tynan? There it is.
I don't. She probably works for like CNN now or something.
Like, it would have been cool to have to do the like, although maybe this wasn't a thing in 81 of like, this is the evening news with lead anchor Dee Wallace, and she could have like done like a turn and like have like a pen in her hand.
No, that feels like the era for that, for sure. But I agree with you. But my bigger thing was like, I just like need 2 sentences about what's happening with this creep. Like, there could easily been a scene where the lead detective is holding a piece of paper that's, you know, the glued on letters from a magazine. It says something akin to, you know, meet me at this porno theater or I'll kill your whole family. And so they're like, you know, all right, we're gonna get this creep. Don't worry, Dee Wallace.
Because she clearly knows what phone booth to go to meet him at, but then like the police aren't there. So I'm like, why?
Right, they're tracking her with some sort of earpiece or something.
But if you know what phone booths don't move unless you're Doctor Who.
Right.
Phone booths don't move.
Right.
So like, put a couple plainclothes cops.
That's a police call box. I'm sorry to tell you, that's not a phone.
Shut up, nerd. We're having fun here. Like, put a few plainclothes cops anywhere that can see the phone booth. Like,
yeah,
because they keep being like, well, there's cops around. They'll find her, I guess. And it's like, hang on.
Right. There's even, it seems to be like an adjacent phone booth where there is somebody in there, and it's like, well, can't that guy be a cop? Like,
yeah.
Why is that not a cop? Anyway, so she gets this phone call, and then she progresses to this porno theater, or I guess it's like a sex shop with the little booths in the back sort of thing.
Yeah.
Porno theater makes me think of like a movie theater. So she's in one of those like little solo booths.
Put the quarter in, and it turns on.
Yeah. And so she's in there by herself, and then suddenly the screen flickers to light.
Did you clock the music as hard as I did?
Of the porn?
No, of the movie. Because it's 81, so it feels a little 70s. And I was like,
Yes.
this is Carrie's music. Like, this feels like the music from Carrie. It's the same composer.
Yeah.
So he just literally
okay. No, I did
he
not.
definitely pulled some of the same like stings and stuff from Carrie.
Sure.
But I was like,
yeah, same mood and tone kind
Yeah.
of thing. You know, if like you're operating in that space, I get that.
Because Carrie, I love the music in Carrie. I love that movie, but the music is great. It was for a while, it was one of 3 records I owned.
Oh, nice. So anyway, he comes in, turns on the thing. He starts attacking her. You know, starts overpowering her. It appears for like a flash that there's
Yes,
rape happening, and then okay. So and then it's not that. So it's like I don't know if it was a censorship thing or they didn't. They
I'm
just
not
felt
sure.
Like too much for this movie.
He's also showing her his snuff film. I'm pretty sure is the implication.
Oh, okay. Because it's clearly sexual assault happening on the screen. Like it is at least something produced to look non-consensual. If it's not non-consensual,
And the way he's talking about it sounds like he made it. So I just assumed it was a snuff.
Yeah. So there's like that going on, and then it looks like he's like overpowering her and like ripping her skirt or like ripping out her underwear from under her skirt, and then it like cuts and they're standing facing each other. And so like I was
Because he won't let her turn around at first. Apparently he's a serial killer that, again, I would have loved, this movie's 90 minutes.
Yeah,
You could have afforded
sentence,
5 minutes of explanation for this.
Again, it doesn't even need to be 5 minutes. It's just like, give me a sentence. Because they keep cutting back to her husband is in the news station with cops and people she works with. And it's like, this scene should be explaining what's happening. That's what the point of this cut is.
Because apparently a serial killer, a serial killer of women has become obsessed with her and started calling her, I guess.
Yeah.
And she agreed to meet.
Which totally happens to newscasters.
Yeah. She agreed to meet him. And so this is sort of like the setup of like, he's a serial killer going after her. And he like won't let her turn around. And then he finally does. And it's really cool because she's looking into a film projector. So he's like she's kind of blinded and he's very silhouetted when he does step in front of the light. And it's a cool little effect.
Yeah, and it sort of hides the fact that he maybe is a werewolf.
Yeah, if the movie wasn't called The Howling, you would not know, you wouldn't clock right away that he was a werewolf.
I will. So yeah, and jumping ahead a little bit, like I really do wish we got like just a little glimpse of like a hand going wolf to human.
Oh,
in this
sequence. Oh, okay, you wanted that early.
Just like the smallest little like there's something going on here because the cop is terrified. So the cops come rushing in to try to save her. I actually really like the interaction with the guy who runs the porno shop where he's like, hey, yeah, that broad's in the back. She's got in one of the nudie booths. It's like so
much for discretion, buddy.
Yeah. But also like, it's this movie is like pretty small. Like for being a werewolf movie, like the characters are all pretty like normal people. And then all of a sudden there's this like really bad sketch comedy New York guy stuck in it. Hey, yeah, that broad. Yeah, she pizza.
Like he might as well be moving boxes behind the counter.
Right.
Cleaning glasses.
Exactly. So they go, which is illegal in most states. Did you know that? I learned that fairly recently. Like I knew that was a thing.
That's right. You're not supposed to dry them, or if you do dry them, it's supposed to be a paper towel.
Yeah. It's like not maybe illegal is the wrong term, but like against health codes is probably the better terminology to use there. Anyway, the cops go rushing back, and there's like a cop who's 87 years old, and then another one who's 19,
like has braces and pimples.
Yeah, and his partner is literally like there's a guy behind him holding the retirement cake that's like congratulate or he's a jolly good fellow for he's
exactly
literally trailing them with this cake. He ran from his retirement party to get this one final bust, and the young guy just shoots this the guy in the booth.
It's really weird because again the police are in on this sting that Dee Wallace has sort of orchestrated for this serial killer,
right.
And then he attacks her and she finally finds her voice and like falls out of the booth and the door's open. And so the young cop just like shoots wildly and kills him. And suddenly the older cop is like, you put your gun away, man. And then they're like, well, what happened here? Ask Quick Draw McGraw. And I'm like, did he kill someone? He killed the bad guy, right?
Right. Yeah. But it's like the bad guy didn't have any weapons. And so they act like that's a problem. And I was like, he was in the middle of assaulting her. Like, whether or not the sexual assault was taking place, like, the movie's not clear about that. He was at least physically assaulting her and trying to kill her.
And also, he was the serial killer Eddie who lured her.
Right.
Everything about this says that's what it is. It's on the tin.
Like, this is not a cop apology podcast, but in a situation
absolutely not.
Where the wrong guy has it's like he's not actually the serial killer, but he's a copycat. Like, I don't feel that bad.
Yeah.
If it's not him, it's like a different guy. I'm like, well, still, it seems fine.
He's still being a weirdo to Dee Wallace,
right? I mean, he definitely was going to kill her. But yeah, I would have liked just like the tiniest little thing, like not the full like because later there's a really awesome hand effect.
Yeah,
like,
that hand effect is worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I just want like a little bit of like the he has like cheek fur and then he has a beard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Just like a little bit on the like the tiniest amount I would have liked here. But again, that's a minor quibble.
So they pull her outside and instantly start asking her questions. And I was like, hey, give her a minute to collect herself.
Maybe offer her a water, a coffee, a bagel.
One of those silver blankets.
Definitely needs one of those silver blankets.
Yeah.
Where are the spaceman blankets?
Give me the baked potato blanket.
They're not even like, come down to the station and we'll debrief.
He says like, I got your boss to agree to not put you on camera tonight, but also I'm going to need you to fill out this 13-page dossier of what happened tonight.
Yeah. And the idea is like, put you on camera. She was just literally moments ago assaulted by this man and then he was murdered in front of her. What are we talking
Give
about?
Give her a minute, please.
I realized PTSD hadn't been invented yet, but come on.
So 2 people go into an apartment that they're like, oh, this is Eddie.
This is my biggest beef with this movie. So we've got Dee Wallace, we've got her husband, we've got the cops, we've got the news station people. All of them, I know who these people are, I know what's going on. Right? Like I got my slots that they fit in. We cut to these other 2 people and I'm like, who is this? What's happening now?
Well, they work for the news station.
Right, but it's not like, how about they get out of the news van? You know what I mean? Like, can we make it a little bit more obvious? Hold my hand a little bit. It's like it's very minor, but it's just like maybe I'm being overly pedantic, but these two people are pretty important characters in this movie. They're throughout the movie, and then like later we find out that they're friends. And of course, like I've seen Howling Part 4, so I vaguely had a guess as to who they were because I had seen that movie. But it's just like, I don't know, have them get out of the news van or something. Like have them have a cameraman.
See, I remembered her at least because she was the only other woman in the TV studio.
Right. Yeah, maybe it's just that I'm bad at. I didn't recognize them, and I was taking notes or whatever. But I just was like, I just needed just a skosh more.
But yeah, these two people go to Eddie's apartment, Eddie the serial killer's apartment, and then they see all this. Like it's very much like, if you're making a home movie about serial, like I'm gonna make a movie about serial killers in my backyard with my friends. Like it's all the textbook stuff, like. Murder newspaper clippings on the wall and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre skeleton mobile.
Yeah, creepy pictures of women, then the really, really well done drawings of werewolves.
Yes. And she's like, we should call the police. And I was like, Hank, I thought you were the police. Why are the police not the ones doing this investigating?
That's what I mean. I was like, oh, these must be the cops. Wait, what? What's happening? There's also a great jump scare fake out here with a dog, which I liked.
I did too. Appreciated that.
But yeah, they investigate. They get a little bit of info. They call the police. We cut to D a day later, 2 days later,
a couple hours later.
It's clearly not that long. She's barely holding it together, and they're basically wheeling her in on a dolly to put her on television. They're like, "You made it. Get on TV, D. Come on now."
And her jackwagon we don't see enough of him. He's an asshole, and for clearly such an asshole character was not in enough of the movie. Because he's like, oh, look at her. She's catatonic. She's an idiot. She can't do anything right. Now this handsome man in a suit, now that's a man. He can be on camera. And I was like, I don't see him out on the street. I don't see him hitting the pavement trying to get Eddie to go to a porno shop.
Right. He's played by Kevin McCarthy, who is the lead in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the asshole boss.
Oh, okay.
The one from 56 or so.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, she struggles being on live television, as you imagine somebody might.
Specifically to be on live television to talk about the assault and murder that happened 20 hours ago.
Yeah, and the other thing is, this is your reporter. Do this pre-recorded.
Uh-huh.
Sit her in a comfortable chair.
Put her in a cable-knit sweater with a mug of tea. Get Robin Roberts to sit across from her. Do a little dialogue.
Put her on a couch so that her husband can sit there with his hand on her knee or her shoulder.
Exactly.
And he's just there. And do the quick wide shot of the two of them and then push into just D. Wallace and his hand so we're not like, whose hand is that? This is your employee. Don't you give any shit about her? I realize this is America we're talking about, but come on.
Yeah. And so she goes to her therapist, who I guess works for the TV station, because he was talking in the beginning.
Right. I wondered if he is a guy they bring in as an expert, and she was like, oh, I need to go see a therapist. Well, I already know this guy because I've done TV with him.
I like that theory.
He's written a book and he came on and promoted it kind of thing. The movie doesn't tell us
a great theory that I like.
This is my kayfabe. Yes. But
he's like, yep, you're traumatized. I think you should go to the colony. And I was like, already no. If I ever am speaking to a therapist, you should go to my colony. I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, I do not have interest in that. Thank you so much for playing. We cut to this party. She immediately agrees to go, of course, because it's a movie. And this guy has...
I literally wrote, I would turn around and leave. I would... as soon as we cut to what the colony is, I'm like, I would 0.025 seconds, I would turn around and leave. I'm like, no, I'm walking home. I don't give a shit.
It's basically the beach party from Jaws that's happening. It's like a big bonfire situation.
But scored by the ambient music from Frontierland in Disney World for some reason.
Yes. It's a jug band playing. They've got a washboard person and
they're on the beach
and some jugs. Yeah, it's very strange. And I love a banjo. I'm a banjo enthusiast.
I'm fine with the banjo.
As far as that goes. But I agree with you. It's a weird...
I would have left this place instantly.
Yeah. But the real horror, obviously this movie has werewolves and a bunch of stuff, but the real horror is this piece of beef this man offers to
Is it
to
beef?
Dee and her husband. Yes, because he specifically says this is prime rib, and I was like, sir, that is not prime rib. That's barely beef. It looks like a piece of shoe leather.
Oh, I didn't hear him say prime rib. I thought he said it was like deer or something.
No, he's like, here, have some prime rib. And he gives them this disgusting gnarled hunk that they all seem to be eating directly off their forks with no plate or anything to do. It's like they all, I don't know if we've told this story in the podcast, but once on a family vacation, I had way too much to drink and hadn't eaten. And so my dad and I were eating midnight steaks.
Oh, yeah.
And we were both like eating them like absolute monster a-holes and dangling them over our faces and taking bites of them off the forks to horrify our mother. And so I was like, oh my God, they're eating these steaks like that. Like the one guy literally dangles it over his mouth and takes a big bite. And I'm like, where's the plate? Like you can't eat this.
Give me a
steak
paper
off
plate.
a
Come on.
fork. Yes. Like, come on. And none of that styrofoam. This is a cutting meal, and I got to cut into it, and I want to get styrofoam bits in my food.
And then we see a forest witch in a low-cut dress.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm like, oh, right.
Yep.
The temptress who seduces the husband. Yes, I remember. Oh, and the shrink was part of it, too. This is the part where it all starts, like, clicking into place, where I'm like, oh, I have seen this. No, I haven't seen this movie. I saw the Xeroxed version.
The Xerox to Xerox version.
Yeah, when you'd get that handout in school and you'd be like, hey, I can't read problem 6. Like, can you tell me what that is?
This
And
was
then the
originally
teacher would,
written
like,
in
squint.
1985, and you don't have the master copy anymore. You just keep photocopying
right.
whatever you can find.
Right, and it's like, oh, just don't do problem 6 then. Everybody skip it.
But yeah, this forest witch in a booby dress, and I was like, what are we doing?
We're seducing husbands is what we're doing.
It's just like bonkers that like she is a character in this movie.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then the other person who we see a bunch of at this party is the old man who's played by John Carradine, head of the Carradine family.
Oh, that's
all actors. And he tries to set himself on fire, and the people intervene. They're like, no, you're fine, old man. Tomorrow you'll feel fine. And if I'm at a party where I've just arrived at this creepy place called the Colony, and the old man is trying to set himself on fire at the party, you know where I'm spending the night? Not at the Colony.
I already left the Colony though, so there's that. But it's funny, I thought that would become a thing, that like he was the regretful werewolf, which is my new children's book that comes out next year.
The regretful. I love it. The regretful werewolf.
Keep an eye out in Barnes & Noble.
He's like slaughtering lambs and then just weeping.
Yeah, well, I thought it was going to be like he was going to be at the end, be like, Dee Wallace, I got to get you out of here. They're all werewolves, and I can't do this again, whatever.
Yeah.
No.
I can't let someone else get this.
Not at all. That's not what happens in the slightest. Her husband is a total 70s hunk, by the way, Dee Wallace's husband.
Yeah. He's got a little bit of Tom Atkins going on.
Mm-hmm. I can see that for sure, especially in Halloween 3.
Yeah.
Right, that's Tom Atkins.
So we cut to the morgue and we get our favorite, all-time favorite. Here's a bunch of body parts, and right next to it is the ham sandwich.
Why was there a SeaWorld dolphin transportation device in the morgue? I've never seen that in a morgue.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like what logical purpose it would serve, and I guess if you needed to do something like only extremities, it might be useful, but I can't imagine.
It's because like every other thing you see, they're on the gurney and they like pick them up and they put them on the slidey slabs or whatever.
Yeah.
But this, for some reason, they have a like full on. It's like they're transporting a dolphin from one tank to another. It's like a bag.
It's
a bag on a track in the ceiling.
Right, it's like the thing that you'd use to lift the engine out of a car, like a arm winch.
That is also that works too.
Yeah, but it's like, but it is the dolphin transport from SeaWorld, where it's like a cloth thing that is supported from the top, so that the animal can like lay in it and then be supported, and not on a gurney. Which I guess for some reason I don't know the reason why, but I always assumed that like because they were sea creatures, you couldn't like plop them down on a gurney because it would be bad for their insides.
I would guess, yeah. Or I think it's because you'd have to still lift them out anyway. Like, you have to get them out of the ocean anyway,
Yeah,
so it
that's
just
true.
makes more sense to do it that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I could not for the life of me figure it out. And then I was like, maybe they just couldn't get access to a morgue and they used a vet clinic that they could rent.
Oh, it totally could be a vet clinic. Yeah,
Because like you
put the
would use
dog.
that for horses or a dog. Like there's a number of animals that you might want that for.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, like, is the morgue at the colony or is the morgue back in New York? I can't.
The morgue is back. Is it New York?
Or I don't remember. That's why I'm asking. Because I was.
It's
wondering
whatever
if it's
city
like a
that
little
they're
wink.
from. I don't know if it actually takes place in New York, but
Oh, the beginning part with the phone booth and the porn theater is definitely New York.
oh, okay, then New York.
Yeah. Because I was like, oh, is it like a wink wink joke of like, oh, this is where he does surgery on werewolves?
Oh, would have been cool, but no.
Because there's about a million little wink wink wolf jokes in this. Like at one point a character's eating wolf chili. There's a brand of like patent medicine that's wolf brand patent medicine. Like anywhere they could stick a little wolf thing in, they did.
Yeah. And then Eddie's freezer drawer is empty. His little crisper drawer is empty.
Right.
I pulled this on Wiki, and I just have to mention it. The guy who plays the doctor, I don't remember. Did you say he's like a famous person?
I did not look him up. I was talking about John Carradine, who's the old guy at the party.
Okay. So the guy who plays the doctor in this movie, who I think was in like the original event, like Emma Peel Avengers thing in the 60s.
Okay.
His mother, like in real life, not the character, the actor, in real life, his mother was a lesbian in the fucking 30s who ended up hitching her wagon to a rich woman from the Dewar's whiskey fortune.
Wow, the heir to the Dewar's fortune, eh?
Yeah. I don't know if it was an heir
Good for her.
situation.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But apparently in his autobiography, he refers to his mom's girlfriend as Uncle Evelyn. That's how they called her. And she paid for all of his schooling.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Where's that movie,
So-
Hollywood? That's a cool ass movie. The Dewar's, the 1930s
Yeah,
Dewar's heiress lesbian.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Like, forget this, we're looking for ammonite fossil nonsense and looking at each other longingly. Like, give me the two ladies getting soused and having fun with each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know the Dewar's heir parties.
Of course he does.
So the two people from the investigation into the serial killer's room that we were complaining about earlier, they're coming up to visit at the colony because they're calling in their reinforcements.
Not yet.
And they're at this point. Well, isn't this where the sheriff scares the two ladies, or is it Dee Wallace and a woman from town that get scared?
Dee Wallace and a woman from town get scared by the cowhead.
Oh, okay. I just wrote ladies, so I jumped ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, the sheriff.
You almost cut Dick Miller out of the movie. So
No. I had Dick Miller
you better
next.
watch yourself.
Come on. You think I'm gonna not mention best friend of the podcast, Dick Miller? Come on. This is one of my favorite Dick Miller this. Obviously, you have to rank. You have to you have different scales for your Dick Miller, right? Like obviously, Piranha, different scale. Like that's an
Gremlins,
all-timer.
Piranha. It's like a real character.
Yeah. Whereas here, this is oh, Dick, you gotta come do the movie because I'm making a movie. But this is one of my favorites of the Dick Miller just shows up for a half day's work situations. He plays the owner of an occult bookstore who at first seems totally all in on this, which I love the turn. It's such a great little thing he does where it's oh yeah, and he's doing lore about you can only kill a werewolf with silver or fire or whatever, and he's rattling off of this stuff, and they're like, oh wow, do you really believe in this? He's like, no, I sell books. What are you talking about? I don't believe this crap.
It made me wish that we had we had gotten a series where starring Dick Miller as a jaded occult bookstore owner.
Yeah.
Where he's not quite Giles from Buffy, but he would fill that space and be like, come on, kids, what are you doing?
Yeah. And I love him up on the big wheelie ladder, and he's like, come on, pull me over this way. And the guy's,
exactly. He is
yanking him
just the
along.
best.
It's so good. Yeah. He is truly one of those actors who could take whatever little thing you gave him and create a whole person out of it. And it's there's just not that many people who can do that. And it's every time I see him, I'm like, God, this dude was underappreciated in his time.
Yeah, I love him.
This character's on screen for 3 minutes. He clearly this is
I think
a
5
day tops.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, 5.
He got a day rate and some craft services.
Right. And it's like, you know what this dude's life is like. It's good. It's just really, really underrated good acting that he builds a world for this person in such a small time. Which isn't a surprise. Dick Miller's great,
No,
but it's like you just get to see him do his thing, right? Like it's like he comes in off the bench, he hits like 6 3-pointers, and he's like, "All right, I'm done. Good night."
Yeah, it almost feels like I would imagine like the celebrity sub in at like a basketball game
Yeah,
where they're like, we have, I don't know, Morgan Freeman here, and he's gonna, for the last 30 seconds, he's gonna like do a thing and like dribble the ball for a little bit, and like that's it. Like it's his publicity stunt. Like that's what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah.
Because this,
like he does like the halftime shoot the ball. From
yes,
the court.
exactly. Because this is definitely on par, like on scale par with Chopping Mall in terms of
Oh, totally.
like
Yeah,
that's this where this falls.
yes, agreed.
So
And
back
it's
at
like the same thing there, where he's like he just takes a little thing and makes a whole thing out of it. It's also important that he's the guy who sets all the rules up for the movie. Like after this conversation with Dick Miller, it's like, okay, we know how to kill the werewolves. We know like how they're impervious to regular weapons and stuff. Like he lays out all the rules in a way that doesn't
and how they
feel
operate.
Like, hey audience, yeah, and it doesn't feel like that scene where they turn to camera, stare straight down the barrel, and are like, and here's the rules of the movie. You know what I mean?
So because Dee Wallace and another lady at the compound found, or the colony, we'll say,
Yeah.
found a cow's head, all the men are going hunting, and they're being led by Donnie from the Wild Thornberries.
He does have the whole like kid.
He's got like he's like
hunter business.
he's like Donnie from Wild Thornberries by way of Hair the Musical.
Donnie is the dad.
No, Donnie is
You're talking
the
about, like,
feral child who's voiced by Flea.
Oh,
The one who's like,
okay. I thought you were talking about the
Nigel?
The one dude has like, yes. Well, the one dude in this hunting party has like basically everything but the pith helmet.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the weird Marsha's brother.
Gotcha.
Who's
okay, yes.
who's wearing this like suede shearling long vest and nothing else but pants.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's weird. And then Dee Wallace goes to group therapy where it's literally just her sitting in the middle of the circle recounting what happened to her and then being like, and then what happened? Did you see him? Look at him. He's there. Tell us what he looked like. You saw it.
Yeah, they're like trying to like get her to bring this suppressed memory out, which I don't really understand because the guy's dead. Like, what is the net benefit of this?
I don't know. I mean, I guess so she can figure out like what happened in there. She was the last one to see him.
Yeah, but it's like at that point, like what, like she didn't shoot him, so she's off the hook. It's like, what does she need to bring this memory to the forefront? It's not as if he's on the loose and they're like, if you know what he looked like, we could catch him.
That's true. Yeah, yeah, I guess. I mean, honestly, when you look at this movie's plot too long, there's some holes. Like this is pretty threadbare.
Right, yeah.
Like it doesn't really make sense as to
Right.
why everything happened.
Right, and I think that some of that is on purpose. Like I think the main character, like our audience window being confused in this movie is on purpose, and that's why the movie's a little confusing. Like he wants you to be a little off your game in
Well, no,
watching the movie, but
I even mean in the end when all is laid bare, I still am like, I don't fully get it. And like I don't want to spoil fully. We'll get there when we get there. But like
yeah.
I fully was like, I don't fully understand what's happening here.
Yeah, it does seem later that they don't have this plan thought all the way through, because I thought the whole idea was like, oh, what they're trying to do is, recruit Dee Wallace into the werewolf cult. But that does not seem to be what the game is.
No, it doesn't. So I don't get it. And we'll get there.
Yeah. So anyway, Bill gets attacked by a wolf.
After the sexy forest witch tries to seduce him, and he's like, no, but maybe.
Maybe later.
Mm-hmm.
Check back with me after I've had 4 or 5 doers.
He does that, the Rebel Wilson in Pitch Perfect, where she's like, no, wink.
Yeah.
And he gets wolfed.
Yeah. And then he's like absolutely destroying some meat after that.
He also gets injected with a comically large needle.
Yes, yeah, that's true. That is true.
But he's like,
it's like-
oh, sorry, you're a vegetarian. Sorry, I forgot. And he's like, that's all right. As he's like holding a rib, like a whole, like
Yeah.
a mostly empty rib.
He like puts a rib in like a cartoon and pulls it out
And it's
with a
clean.
bone, and is talking with like his mouth is full of pork, being like, "It's really great. Don't worry about it." I'm like, D. Wallace, you don't have any concerns about this? He's a vegetarian.
You're not
I
a
was just, like,
little
mowing-
suspicious?
Right. And also, like, hey, not for nothing, but lady, you're friends with these people for a while. It's kind of shitty that you didn't remember he's a vegetarian.
Yeah. We also get our favorite werewolf quote in this movie. The man who says his prayers by night. It happens in this movie.
Oh,
They're in
yes.
the friends who come later, or just show up now, right before they get here, they're in bed reading the werewolf book and watching that werewolf I don't know if it's the Wolfman.
It's the original Wolfman, which gets used all the time. It's in The Sandlot. It's in, and it's like
That's why I was like, we quote it so much.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Traveler woman has that very thick, Transylvania type accent of like, he can only be killed by a silver bullet or a knife with a silver handle or a,
Or a scrap of silver. Anything silver, I guess.
basically silver, okay, and also fire, but mostly the silver. The werewolf, he an expensive kill.
That turned into Mario a little bit in the end there.
Well,
You grab the slider and you were like, Transylvania, Mario.
I turned it up to it's me, a werewolf hunter.
And then it also makes me now think of the fortune-telling machine robot from Futurama, who they always go
Yes,
to when
for
they need to
sure.
do this bit.
Yeah.
So Dee Wallison tries to have sex with her husband. He's like, no, I'm not in the mood. And she's like, well, we're on different schedules, I guess, again. And then he leaves in the middle of the night to have like fireside wood sex with the witch.
By the way, that line is doing so much heavy lifting of like, these people have not gotten down together in months. It is like very clearly been a long time.
He had tried to sleep with her shortly after she was assaulted, and she was like, I'm having flashbacks, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So we did see that much.
But it does, the way she says it, it makes it seem like it's been a good 3 months.
Yeah. So he goes to have fireside wood sex with the witch.
Full frontal witch.
Yeah. And then it's a really, actually, I mean, obviously it's them like about to bone, but it's a really cool shot with the fire in the foreground, like to the right, and they're like more central behind it. So it's like this really like ethereal moment. And then all the wolves start howling.
They also use the fire to block his peen.
Yeah, I mean, come on. If you're going to just show it.
He shows his butt, which I was like genuinely not expecting, but I was like, this woman is fully naked. Like, come on, movie.
Just give a
Everybody can be
flash.
naked, it's fine. Yeah.
So did you notice, as they're boning, all the wolves, they have real wolf sounds. They got a couple different wolf sounds.
Yeah.
And then there's just a human being going,
I thought that was supposed to be Bill, the character.
I don't know if it was, but it's like literally like,
it's really funny. Yeah.
I was like, who got fired from this this audio mixing?
Well, it's in my head. What happened was like everybody started to change, but for whatever reason, like Jeremy didn't get himself into the moonlight, and so he was like, "Oh, I don't want to be left out." And they're like, "Come on! Why didn't you get to the moonlight? The clearing is right there."
So now, Bill and the witch have wolf teeth and they're drooling. It's pretty good effects makeup.
Yeah, this stuff looks really great. And then they turn to cartoons, which is less great, but still honestly, like, given the constraints
It's
of the
interesting.
time, I was like, fine with it. Yeah, I agreed. It was quick and it was just like, yeah, all right. Like, plus you're like saving your money shot for later. So I was fine with it, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what I liked about it. I really liked that because I have never seen something like that before where a real, like, not child movie was like, yeah, we're going to use a little bit of like 30 seconds of animation, if that, to show like two people in heavy silhouette transforming.
Yeah, I thought it was a clever idea given, like I said, like you only have so much money to go around and like that's a shot that you can get away with.
Especially because rotoscoping that would be so easy.
Totally. She also scratches him on the back, which you're like, well, I guess that's going to come out later. But even that is like just directly in Howling 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, really? At what point are you not just making the same movie?
They were making the same movie again.
Right, but it's like they changed 3 details, and it's like, just make it again if you want to make it again.
Apparently, there's talks that it's happening for Netflix with Andy Muschietti at the helm.
I saw that. Yeah, it seems like, this is, we've talked about this before, where it's like, you shouldn't make really good stuff, remake really good stuff, but this one seems fine to me. Like, people remember this fondly, but it honestly, like, could easily be, it's got, like, good bones to it, but you could see somebody doing something really cool with it.
Yeah. I think it needs it just needed a little tweaking, I found, but I really liked it.
As long as you stay away from making CGI werewolves, like,
get the hell out of here.
See it. Yeah, call Rick Baker. He's not that busy. Actually, speaking of Rick Baker, did you see the factoid that
he was supposed to do it?
So the special effects in this are done by Dean Cundy, who also did The Thing. Great effects guy.
Not Dean Cundy. Botten. Dean Cundy is a
Dean Cundy is the cinematographer.
The cinematography guy.
Wrong person. Completely wrong person. Dean Cundy is the best cinematographer perhaps ever, at least in my book. Yes, I'm sorry. Rob Botten, Rick Botten.
It's a Botten.
Anyway, Rick Baker was supposed to do this movie. He left to go do American Werewolf in London, which, like, I would love to know the story of how that came about.
Right?
It's like, my guess is they were like, okay, Rick, you have X budget for this movie. And he's like, cool. And he starts working on it. And they're like, hey, we want you to do werewolves for twice as much money. And he's like, all right, bye.
He's like, they turn around. He's already got his hat on out 1 foot out the door.
He's like, he's running out the door holding all of the werewolf pieces he's already started working on. So there's like a werewolf arm like falling out as he's running away. It's like the little Scooby-Doo, like,
exactly,
footsteps. And there's just wolf parts dropping behind him.
So Terry, the lady friend who was investigating, realizes that one of the drawing of a landscape they found in Eddie's gross apartment is here. It's the colony. And I was like, okay, all right. In my head, I'm like trying to figure out where it's going to go. I still don't know where it really went. And so she's...
Yeah, I think it was just supposed to be like, oh, this is all connected.
Yeah, but I understand that. I don't understand why.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm just saying, I think that's what we're supposed to glean here.
Because I was like, oh, that's cool. And then, so she starts walking through the wood. Like, normally, if I had that revelation, I'm running back to my friend's cabin. Like, sprinting there directly. And she's just kind of meandering through the woods after this, and then comes across the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house.
Yeah, so I do want to pause for 30 to 80 minutes to talk about how great these woods are.
Yeah.
Because it is full daylight. Woods are always a little creepy. But in full daylight, it's really hard to make something feel as ominous as they do here. And they just like jam it full of fog, which really, like, I'm sure is a result of the natural forest, the way the forest works and the way temperature shifts in forest. But the fog like really clings to certain areas of the scenery and stuff. And it just looks so
It's
awesome.
a great set. They got very lucky.
Yeah.
So her friend goes into the Texas Chainsaw cabin for some reason, alone. I was like, girl, you already know the murderer was here and his body is missing. Like, you...
Right. Totally stupid.
All the signs are pointing to go back to the cabin.
Right. Get out of town.
So the smiley face that the killer leaves around the phone booths is in this cabin. And then he has clearly his room is there. And a werewolf tries to break in and she like tries to run away. It's a nice little fight where she ends up cutting off the werewolf's hand.
Yeah,
and it's
she grabs an axe in the middle of the fight.
This is the best sequence of anything in this movie. This hand collapsing on itself and then opening again as a human is just like so cool.
Yeah, this is clearly like, the werewolf suits are good. There's a lot of like pretty cool looking effects. Later, Robert Picardo gets the like big full transformation, but this little hand is unparalleled. Like really spectacular.
Because Botten did the thing, right?
Right, but he hadn't done it yet.
But you can see this hand is the thing. Like it's got that
thing adjacent.
Slimy, it's wet, it's gross. It's great.
Yeah. The part where it curls up on itself and then flops back open as a human hand looks so awesome. Like really, really like
it's excellent.
Movie magic kind of thing. Yeah.
I was like, chop off his hand and run. And then she stops to like look at the hand. I was like, I'm glad you stopped because it's cool we got to see it.
Yeah.
And this is where I was like, oh, I've seen this part because she goes into it. I think it's like number 80 or something on 100 Scariest Movie Moments that Bravo did 30 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
She's in the like main office at the colony talking to her boyfriend, I guess, who also
Yes.
is investigating on the phone. And he's like, well, look through the file cabinet, see if you can find Eddie Quist or whatever. And she like drags the phone over there so she can stay on it while talking. And it's like a decently well lit. It's moody, but it's not like pitch black.
Right.
And she's like going through and she says Marcia Quist, which is the name of the sex witch. Her name was Marcia. And I was
Yeah.
like, the sex witch is Eddie's sister?
Yeah. That doesn't get talked about enough in the movie. But
Right. And she goes, Eddie Quist, as she pulls one out, a werewolf hand just comes out of frame and puts a hand on her like, you're not looking through any files.
Yeah.
And it's genuinely a little scary.
It's so scary. Yeah, it's awesome. It's really, really good, really effective.
I will say that seeing the werewolf in full like this is a little hokey.
The ears are too big.
Yeah.
And it makes it look, they're like almost bunny-like.
Yeah, and like I think it's just a very obviously like limitations. It's a very static face. It's not like articulating very much, so it just feels kind of like a dude with a head on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's what it is.
Yeah.
My bigger thing is like I just the way the person in the suit is portraying the werewolf is actually, I really like the movement that they're doing and sort of the like unnatural gait that they have and the way that they move their body is really odd.
Yeah.
I think that's really good. But yeah, it's really the ears for me where I'm like, if there's just need to be a little, like wolves don't have ears that big.
No, you're right.
Like wolves have big ears, but this thing's got, a couple of bananas sticking out the top of its head.
This is also, it's intercut with Dee Wallace's husband trying to gaslight her. I was like, don't gaslight her and then hit her, you piece of shit.
Yeah, this part really sucks. And also she's like, hey, you turned me down for sex, then you disappeared, and now you have scratches on your back that sure look like fingernails. You want to tell me what's going on here? And he hits her.
He's like, oh, you and your crazy theories. You think I'm having sex with the sex witch? And she's like, I didn't say that. You did.
Yeah, you immediately filled that gap in, sir. And then she's like, wait a minute, now that you mention it, she does give you the doomy eyes every time you see her.
And then he hits her, and I was like, fuck off. Yeah. And so we cut back to the office where her friend Terry is fighting the werewolf, and she like turns on the like, that sort of portable doctor light, and the werewolf hates it. And I was like, ooh, great. She has a weapon to get. And then she walks away from it. And I was like, no, stay there.
Lady, hold that thing out in front of you and back away slowly. Come on.
And then he lifts her up by the neck, and I thought she was going to like rip down the blinds because she's right. They're silhouetted in blinds, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, knock down the blinds. He doesn't like light.
Yeah. Like you saw it, you figured it out. Like, dude, no, okay.
No,
right.
she just dies.
Yeah, I also it's genuinely shocking that nobody smokes cigarettes in this movie, given the time it was made.
Yeah, it's
and the
there
whole
should
time
be that TV station room should just be full of smoke.
Yeah, and at this part, she should be like smoking a cigarette and using it to try to scare off the werewolf.
Yeah,
so they can be killed by fire. Yeah.
So Dee Wallace goes into the office and sees that her best friend is like has her throat ripped out, and obviously we love Dee Wallace here. She's a little calm.
She's a little too chill.
A little too chill for
her friend. Her friend has got her throat ripped out, and she's just kind of like, oh my god, like sort of
Troll
2-ish. Yeah. Also, we didn't mention in the middle of the big fight, Terry, who is now dead, was on the phone with Rob,
her boyfriend,
the other investigator, her boyfriend, and there's a great scene where and it's clearly like they also filmed this, right? Like Dick Miller, I think, is even wearing the same shirt, but they like. It shows him like blow into the
occult
bookstore, grab the bullets, throw the bunch of money on the table, and he's like, "Hey, I gotta check with a jeweler. Those are actual silver." And he's like, "Bill me!" and just runs out the door.
It's
he doesn't
so
even
great.
wait. Yeah. There's two scenes that you would think are completely extraneous with Rob on his way to come save the day. One, him buying the bullets, and the second, him buying gas. And both of them like don't necessarily add all that much to the movie, but it's just sort of those little, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts thing, where it just adds a lot of character to this guy.
Yeah, for sure. So Dee Wallace.
Meanwhile, back in the doctor's office,
Dee Wallace, Eddie shows up, and he's got a bullet hole in his head. And he's like...
Played by Robert Picardo, later of Star Trek.
Oh, okay. That's funny that Picardo was on Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
He's like clearly starting to wolf out, and he starts to transform, and it looks kind of Deadite, which I like.
Yes, I thought the same thing.
But then so like they did that thing that I feel like happens a lot in like weird transformation kind of movies where they have like a bladder under the fake skin, and they like pump it, they like squeeze it with air,
make it pulse. Yeah.
So it pulses. And I think this movie just has too much of that. Like
I totally
I'm like,
agree.
okay,
Totally agree.
Grow already.
Right. And also it's just like, that's not what it would look like. Like it wouldn't go in and out and in and out and in and out. On your forehead.
I understand if you're gonna do like a couple like in and outs, like the skin is preparing to stretch to a werewolf or whatever, but like he's just like standing there and his whole forehead is like bouncing and pulsing like it's a rave.
Yeah. And they really are proud of it because they hold tight on it for a good 30 seconds at a clip. And I was just like, oh man, just push it out and let it be out and don't pump it.
Mm-hmm. And then he's transformed and she acids him in the face.
Yeah. This is the other little, it's like the thing she throws at him is like a patent medicine that says wolf on it.
Oh, I missed that. And this is where I was like, I really want some kind of explanation, but we don't get it.
Oh, he also really yanks a bullet out of his own face, and it looks really gnarly.
It looks really, it's gross and cool.
Yeah. Sorry.
So basically, now that we're there, we can talk about it. Eddie is a serial killer of women who grew up in this colony that is run by the psychiatrist, the therapist, whatever. It's his colony, who is working at the TV station, kind of. We don't know what capacity. Eddie gets obsessed with Dee Wallace, who works at the TV station, who is also a patient of the doctor.
Yes.
And there's that whole thing where he tries to kill her, and then the doctor sends, after he dies, the doctor sends her to the colony where Eddie like lived, or I don't know, he lives there or grew up there or whatever.
Right.
And then everyone there is a werewolf, turns out, including Eddie. And I was just like, I don't understand why. Like what? Why?
Right. And it's like there's a conversation that happens just a couple minutes from now where somebody very intelligently points out, like, this woman is kind of famous. If she disappears, people are going to know. And then they're like, oh, you're right. We should make it look like they drove off a cliff or they lost control of the car.
Yeah.
And da-da-da-da-da-da. And the whole time I'm like, well, if you don't have a plan, why did you want her to come here?
Exactly. Because if Eddie lived at the doctor's colony, as soon as the doctor found out that Eddie was, contacting What's-Her-Face, he should have been like, stop it. You cannot kill her.
Right. So the only thing I think makes sense, and again, like, this is not the movie, this is just like my theory, is I could see a world in which the machination was you make Dee Wallace feel like she needs therapy by using one of your colony people. You send her up to the colony. She starts to recover. She goes on TV and she talks up the colony. And now there's like a really good food supply.
Huh. Okay. All right. Yeah.
But it's like, that's a lot of leap on my part.
It is. But also that doesn't hold a whole lot of water, because if there's no Yelp reviews, you can't have Yelp reviews when no one comes out of the colony.
Right. But like, there are no Yelp reviews.
But that's what I mean. Like, as soon as people start like, oh, Dee Wallace talked about the colony. Oh, everyone I know is people talk, like someone, my neighbor went, they never came back. Like,
yeah. Well, that's the thing is I don't think most people, like, maybe they don't all come back. Maybe they get turned into werewolves. I like, that's where you lose me. It's like, is it like we'll turn everyone into werewolves and then we've got like a werewolf, a big pack? I don't know. You're right. People will be confused. But also, I do feel like in 1981, the number of people who just like walked away from their lives was way higher than it was.
It was way easier to do.
Yeah. So maybe that's how you get away with it. But yeah, I agree. It's not really clear what the end game with Dee Wallace was supposed to be, like why you wanted her to go here in the first place.
Yeah, I don't fully get
Unless it was, we think she'll join us.
Which they like sort of allude to, but it doesn't, the way they talk doesn't sound like we've wanted you all along. It's sort of like, oh shit.
Right.
Do you want to join?
Make a perfect den mother. Yeah. Yeah, it is weird that they don't figure that out before they do in the movie. So she runs to the doc, who of course isn't a good guy, and we know that. I was really surprised that the doc didn't have more wolf stuff going on.
Well, yeah, he's not as evil as you would think.
Right.
Also, there is 15 minutes left in this movie. and it's a full paragraph and a half left on Wikipedia
Yeah, a lot happens at the end
of a 4-paragraph movie synopsis.
This is really one of those movies where it's like you keep winding up the toy and then you finally let it go and it just goes like and bounces all over the table.
So the boy Rob, is that the boyfriend's name?
Yes.
Rob shows up in the office where Terry was killed, and Eddie shows up looking all melty. He looks like Bill Paxton in Near Dark.
He does. He does look a lot like Bill Paxton in Near Dark. It's really great makeup here on Robert Picardo.
I don't know why he's got a frog throat.
Yeah, that I didn't notice. But I just thought
The rest of the makeup was cool, but he's like, well, watch me transform. Ribbit, ribbit. And his little like throat
I
pouch.
thought it was supposed to be. Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be some side effect of the acid.
Oh, maybe.
Like he's just got this like horrible, like a like a pizza bubble.
Yeah. And then he shoots him with silver, and he's like, well, all right.
Yeah, game over.
And
but he shoots him 2 times, and I'm like, sir, you are 16 inches from this man. You cannot miss from that range. You do not have infinite bullets.
No. But also, like, this so begins the sequence of the movie where the man who brought silver bullets specifically to shoot werewolves just is like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to shoot him.
Yeah.
I don't want to shoot him. I'll point it at him.
I got the impression that he was afraid he was going to accidentally shoot Dee Wallace, which is, you know, a fair assessment.
I mean, I don't know that read on that actor's face.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just like, what are you doing? Like, what did you expect was going to happen? Did you think they were just going to be like, oh, you caught us. You brought the one thing that kills us. Okay, let's all calm down. Everybody have a seat. We're going to sit in the share circle and we're going to make a negotiation happen here. Just everybody be cool.
Yeah, like they're taking Dee Wallace and the dead body of her friend out of the barn. Like,
Yes.
We're going to toss it in a car and throw it into the ocean. And he shows up with a gun, and Donnie from Wild Thornberrys is like, gun won't do you any good. And he's like wolfing out. And I was like, I understand that you want to show off some of the makeup, but like from a practical, like logistics standpoint, you wouldn't let him get close. He's supposed to be like, don't come any closer. Don't come any closer. Yeah. And I'm like, you brought the bullets for this.
Yeah. And that one in particular is egregious because Dee Wallace is nowhere near it. Just shoot the guy.
So he shoots him, and I was like, great. Now just fire into this crowd of werewolves. Like, these are all werewolves. Yeah. Like, everyone here is exactly a werewolf.
Right. And you don't know, maybe Dee Wallace is a werewolf at this point. Just start shooting.
Yeah. And so, like, some guy holds out a gun, and he's like, I have silver bullets. And the one guy's like, bullshit, and pulls out his own gun. And then he like, takes forever to shoot him, too. And I was like, just keep shooting.
This man almost shot you because you took 100 years. Just pull it until it clicks.
Just keep firing into this crowd of werewolves. You brought the bullets for this. And so he instead of shooting them, he like menacingly walks towards them, and they all back into the barn. And I was like, what?
Yeah, at that point they're afraid.
Yeah, but again, like he's one dude with a gun, like, and he's not shooting.
Right.
He's not shooting happy.
Although it has been proven that if he does shoot you, you die.
Yeah.
I did like also earlier with Robert Picardo, he like snatched the rifle away and then later just straight up hands it back to Rob and is like, I mean, that's not going to do anything. Here you go. Knock yourself out. And then he shoots him and it's a silver bullet. And it doesn't read this way for real. But my imagination was him being like, oh, no.
Yeah. The end of Little Shop of Horrors. Oh, shit.
Yeah, exactly.
So they use a gun. At first, I thought they used their own gun to barricade